This production by StrikeTime Dance Theatre of Hope College was made possible through funding from the Maxine DeBryan Endowment and in collaboration with the Little Reed Lake Shore. Hello, welcome friends and families. My name is Nikki Flynn of the Hope College Dance Department. Today we aim to share an experience of history through the lens of dance. The work you will see was inspired by Fry Bread, a Native American family story, beautifully illustrated by Juana Martinez Neal and written by Kevin Noble Malliard. We would like to begin today with a land acknowledgement to honor the traditional land of the Peoria, the Potawatomi, the Ottawa, and the Ojibwe peoples. We honor with gratitude the land itself, and we pay respect to our elders, both past and present, as they guide us on remembering our connection to the earth and to the spirits of the ancestors that teach us. We commit to respecting and reconciling a long history of injustice, as well as committing to be better stewards of this land that we inhabit. Thank you so much for joining us today, and please enjoy the presentation. Welcome to StrikeTime Dance Theatre's episode of Traditions. I'm Abby.
And I'm Madeline.
Think about the word tradition. How many of you know what tradition means? Well, we all have some sort of family tradition, whether it's a special holiday event, rites of passage like high school graduation, special vacation, foods we eat together, birthday celebrations, and more. Take a moment to think about a special family tradition that you have. Yes, traditions are memorable, and they become experiences in our lives that we look forward to.
Now, think about traditions that happen around a table, like this one. A family dinner, a tradition of family game night, celebrating a birthday, or baking cookies with your cousins. Often, the family table is a special place where people come together to celebrate.
Tables are a place to gather, to eat, to make goods and crafts, work, have conversations, share stories, and make memories.
It is tradition and time spent around the table with family and friends that is important and has an impact on our lives. During these times, we learn, remember, connect, and celebrate our family, our culture, and our values.
For example, one of my favorite traditions is making Christmas cookies at the kitchen table with my family. I love making these special cookies shaped like mice that I decorate with all types of candy.
Wow, a family tradition of mine is celebrating a traditional Swedish feast on Christmas Eve. We enjoy great foods such as korv, lingonberries, or spritz cookies.
Traditions are often stories, beliefs, rituals, and customs that a family maintains and passes down generation to generation. Traditions are something learnt from our ancestors, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles. Traditions are important to families as it is a way to know and connect with your family better. Traditions give each of us a sense of belonging and helps us know who we are and where we come from. Traditions are often changed, and can be developed in new ways as it is passed down. Traditions can be happy and full of celebration, or traditions can emerge from painful experiences. Traditions bring people together to unite and gather.
You just saw a movement sequence with gestures. Do you know what a gesture is? We are going to talk about what gestures are and how they can be used to communicate meaning. The dancers use gestures or hand signals from the Native American custom, which is used as a basic form of communication. Native Americans use gestures or hand signals to have a conversation using their bodies without even saying a word. This made it possible for tribes that speak many different languages to be able to communicate with one another. Here, let me share some with you. Take 2 fingers on your right hand and place them on the left side of your chest. Okay, now make 2 swoops. 1, 2. Great job! That means mother. Let's try that one more time. 1, 2. Okay, here's another one. Take 3 fingers in the same hand and place them on the other side of your chest and tap 3 times. 1, 2, 3. That means father. Once more. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. The native languages relied on these gestures to symbolize meaning, which has become universal amongst the tribes. I'll be back soon to discuss a little bit more about gestures.
Welcome back. So today, as we learn more about our own traditions and the traditions of others, we hope to share and communicate ideas through dance and movement. We will be exploring a Native American family story called fry bread.
The making of fry bread has come to be a tradition of many Navajo tribes.
Joining us today is our friend Nick Dalton, who is a two-spirit mixed blood of the Creek and Cherokee people, to talk about Native American tradition and learn more about the history of fry bread.
Geshe, Eskoke. How are you, ladies and gentle thems? I'm excited to share some time and some space with you around the topic of fry bread and indigenous culture.
We're excited to learn more about your culture and traditions. Can you tell us more about what this means to you?
Yeah, I'd love to. So to start, I want to share a Sioux parable, which says that the longest journey any human will ever take in their life is from the head to the heart. So I hope that we can do that together in the next couple of minutes. To start off, let me define what the term mixed blood means. So in the United States, there's about 5 million enrolled tribal members, but most of us don't actually live on reservations. Around 70 to 80% live in cities. We call ourselves urban Indians, and most of them live in Los Angeles and San Francisco. Now, mixed blood means primarily that we're not 100% Native American because we've been living in cities for a period of time. But that could be, mixed indigenous, like the Creek and Cherokee and even the Choctaw in Oklahoma, who lived in the reservation together. You could be Black indigenous, you could be Latinx indigenous. Some of us are enrolled tribal members, some aren't. And some tribes aren't even recognized as people by the US government even today.
I'm so glad you're sharing this with us. It's important to continue learning about Native American culture, traditions, and family stories that are different from our own. Can you tell us any more?
Yeah, so each tribe and each band has their own culture, their own traditions, their own language. Some have names and some don't. So for example, the Navajo people in their own language actually call themselves the Diné people. So when we talk about certain tribes or bands or families, we have to actually call them by what they call themselves rather than what the colonizers or the Europeans called them when they invaded North America.
That sounds like an important distinction. We know that traditions are sometimes celebrations or a memorial of important events or people. Might there be any that you could share with us today?
Yeah, so one of my favorite new traditions is celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day instead of Columbus Day. So indigenous peoples are anyone who's native to that geographic location. And the reason we celebrate that instead of Columbus Day is because Columbus actually didn't discover anything. What he stumbled across was an entire culture about 60 million deep in North America.
So Indigenous Peoples Day is just a start to recognizing Indigenous or Native peoples?
That's a good start, but I hope we can all do more to honor and reconcile the past in the future. Now, I know we're running out of time, so before we go, we would like to talk a little bit about fry bread. We've been reading the book Fry Bread by Kevin Malliard and illustrated by Juana Martinez Neal. Did your family have a tradition of making and eating fry bread?
No, actually. My grandmother made biscuits like her mother did. But much like the origins of fry bread, they used the government-issued food, they squeezed butter out of the box, and made biscuits, which were either on the stove or were being made to be put on the stove. My kids have had both, they love them, and I tell them a lot about fry bread. The thing about fry bread is it actually isn't native to the Dene culture. It was a food that they made after they were given subsidized food from the US government, and they put all this foreign food together to create what is now fry bread. Much like the powwow, it just became this universal sign of resilience and survival. The powwow was really native to the Plain Indians, but has since been used to share art and as a sign of resilience and survival, much like the fry bread.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your family and your culture with us today and for having this conversation. We really appreciate your time and your honest words. We know that America has a lot to learn from Native people.
Absolutely. We've learned so much talking with you, Nick. It's so important to continue learning about other traditions and cultures to better understand, respect, and appreciate those around us.
Thanks for having me. What's next?
Well, next, we're going to see a dance that includes gestures, the table, and the tradition of passing down the fry bread recipe from one generation to the next.
You will learn about Native American history and see how the table serves as a place where we learn, remember, connect, and celebrate our family, our culture, and our values.
Before we share another dance performance with you, based on the story Fry Bread and the tradition of passing down the fry bread recipe, let's discuss a little bit more about gestures. In this first piece you saw today, we created movement based on the custom of Native American hand signals. And in this next piece, the performers will also be using many gestures and movements to communicate meaning. Oftentimes in dance, gestures can feel like poetry using movement. Gestures are linked together to create movement that tells a story or communicates meaning. Look out for some gestures in this next piece. See you soon.
Traditions. Inspired by the illustrations, characters, and story of fry bread. Most families have a fry bread lady, usually a grandmother or an old auntie who holds a special recipe that she passes on to her female successor. Fry bread is time. It brings families together for meals and memories. Despite colonial efforts throughout American history to weaken tribal governments and indigenous communities, Native American culture has proven resilient. In strange, unfamiliar lands, the peoples were forced to leave their land and strip their old traditions, and they created new ones especially for food. Fry bread is history. Painful history of stolen land, left in a new world with unknown food and resources. Survival. Native Americans are indigenous peoples whose relationship with the United States government has been marked by control over land, resulting in wars, genocide, and conflict. American soldiers moved families out of their ancestral lands, took all of their belongings, and made them walk across the country to lands unseen in the West. Fry bread is everything. Bread nourishes and comforts in so many cultures, religions, and communities around the world. With so many different tribes of indigenous people in the United States, traditional foods vary from region to region. But certain favorites, like fry bread, have emotional and historical significance. This 144-year-old traditional Navajo recipe has a painful origin. Fry bread is nation. It is shared by many from coast to coast and beyond. Currently, there are 573 federally recognized Native American tribes in the United States. Although different tribes and nations hold different beliefs and principles, the practice of kinship remains important for many Native Americans. Kinship ties are the system that determines what gets passed down from generation to generation. Fry bread is us. It is a celebration of old, new, traditional, and modern, similarity and difference. Native America is not a past history of vanished people and communities. Native America is still here.
In the piece you just saw, the choreographer shared his tradition that happened around a dining room table through movement. This makes me think of the many traditions I have. Actually, I would love to share one with you. In the Mexican culture, young women have large coming-of-age parties on their 15th birthday called a quinceañera, similar to a sweet 16. How can I share the meaning of a quince with you through movement? Time to become a dance maker. Ooh, I got it. Here are 3 words. The first gesture is to represent giving and all the people that gave of their time and effort to make that day special. The second gesture is to represent me putting on my crown because I truly felt like a princess that day. The last gesture is to represent the tradition of trading in sneakers for heels on my special coming-of-age birthday. Let's put that all together. Thanks for watching. Now it's time for you to go explore traditions and gestures.
That was a really special exploration of tradition and history through movement.
Today has been so great. Thanks so much for exploring gestures and sharing some Native American traditions with us. It makes me want to go home and create some of my own movement gestures about family traditions in my life, like making cookies, roll, and press. Maybe you can try it too.
Please keep on reading, dancing, and creating. It is so important to learn about the culture and the history of cultures that are different from our own. Remember, we can celebrate our similarities and differences because together they are what make us all human. Thanks for learning with us today.